Hey guys, this video is gonna be a do's and don'ts of drawing a realistic eye. So on the left side I will show you how to not do it, and on the right side I will show you how to do it. And the left side is basically just like mistakes I've seen other people do and things that I did when I was very new to drawing. So yeah, let's just begin with the video. So first off, I'm gonna show you how to not draw the eye shape. So this is how I did it when I was a beginner, and I also see a lot of people do this. So I kind of just drawn this oval shape, and then above that I just follow the outline and just make the line for the eyelid, and then I just make a little area here at the tear duct area, and then I just randomly draw the iris within that, and or is it iris? Yes, the iris, and that's the pupil. Yes, anatomy is good to know. And now I'm going to show you how I would draw the eye shape today. I usually have a reference photo for my tutorials, but for this one I'm drawing this eye from my imagination. So I'm beginning by drawing a rectangle, and I do this very lightly because we're going to erase this later. And in the center of the rectangle I make this cross, and you want it to be pretty symmetrical, as much as you can at least. And now when we are going to draw the iris, the cross in the middle is going to serve like a guideline. So we're gonna draw a circle around the center of that cross, and you want the upper part and the lower part of the iris circle to meet the upper and lower part of the rectangle. I know in this case I kind of left the tiniest space at the lower part, but in the final result I wish I wouldn't have, because I think it was just too much space there. Yeah, so for the eyelid, I go a little bit further down from the top part, as you can see here. And yeah, I just draw like a line across, and then on the left side, I just draw a line towards the lower left corner of the rectangle, and then I make this rounded shape here for the tear duct. And then I just continue drawing the rest of the eye shape. It's kind of difficult for me to explain exactly what I'm doing here, but yeah, I'm kind of drawing a little bit towards the lower right corner, but I don't do it fully. Yeah, it's kind of difficult to explain, honestly. You can just follow along. And you don't want to forget the waterline, because that's also something that at least I forgot in the beginning when I was new to drawing, but I've also seen other people forget this. And here I'm just using my kneaded eraser to erase the rectangle as well as the upper part of the iris, because I mean it's gonna be covered by the eyelid. And already just by comparing the left side and the right side, you can see that the right side is starting to look more realistic. So the pupil I'm just drawing at the very center of the cross, but it kind of depends on where the person is looking, like what direction and stuff, but this is just the basic thing, I guess. For the eyelid, I am following the eye shape, but at the inner part of the eye, or the left side, I make it the space thinner, and on the outer part or the right side I make it wider, and on the top part I actually make it a little flat. Some people have very rounded eye shapes, some people don't. This is what pops up in my imagination, I guess. I forgot to show you how to not draw the lower eyelid. I actually don't know if that's what it's called, but we're calling it the lower eyelid. So what most people do is, again, they just follow the shape of the eye, and you don't want to do that. So here I'm going to show you at least what I do. So I draw it very thinly first of all, and I kind of make it like a slope instead of following the actual eye shape. You follow it a little bit, but actually, to be honest, I don't pay much attention to this when I'm making the eye shape. I focus more on it when I shade the eye. So I will talk about it more in detail later on, I suppose. And filling in the pupil like this, I wouldn't say is a mistake. This is what most people do, and this is pretty accurate because most pupils are very dark, but of course it can depend on where the light hits and stuff like that. And if the person you're drawing has dark eyes, it can be tempting to draw a harsh line around the iris in the beginning, but I would suggest you to gradually build it up instead. And also filling in the entire iris like this and blending it out may make it look a little bit too flat. And if the eye looks flat and doesn't have a lot of dimension, it won't look very realistic. And when you're drawing the pattern inside of the iris, you don't want to make the strokes too thick, and you don't want to draw them too harshly. You also don't want to bring them too far in towards the pupil. And also, when you're drawing strokes from the pupil, you don't want them to meet the strokes that you drew towards the pupil as much, because as you can see, it ends up looking very, very flat. Some people tend to forget paying attention to the reflection from the light. So on the left, you can see that eye looks very flat, as I have already stated. But on the right side, I am making this white rectangle. You could also make a circle or whatever it may be. If you look at different photos of eyes, you will see that it can look different every time, because it really depends on where the light comes from. And as for the edge around the iris, I'm still making it dark, but I'm not doing it harshly. I am being very gentle when I'm drawing this. As you can see, it looks much softer. And then I actually blend this line, and I blend it a little bit towards the inner part, like towards the pupil. And as you can already see, this creates some dimension to the eye instead of just filling in the entire eye with the same color. And without adding any new color, I'm just using the color that's in the pupil already and kind of blending out the edges. And then I add the contrast back to the pupil. So now you can see there's this light part in the middle of the iris. And when I want to make this area darker, I don't add any more color. I just continue to lightly blend it a little bit towards the center. And most of the time you will see a shadow below the eyelid, so I'm adding more color there and blending it because I want it to be darker in that area. Then I'm using my 0.3 mechanical pencil, which is very thin, and I'm using it to draw these strokes. And here I'm actually starting by making strokes from the pupil, and I do it very carefully and not too far out, because still you want the middle part of the iris to be lighter. And I'm doing the same thing on the outer edge. I'm doing very short strokes first and pretty much only drawing strokes like on the edge of the iris, but then I make some longer ones, drawing them more towards the center. But I also make sure to lift the pencil when I get closer to the center, because you want those lines to be softer, because you still want that lighter part in the center, and then you want it to be more dark on the outer parts. So on the outer parts you can draw a little bit more harshly if you want to, but of course not too much. And I don't know if you can notice, but these strokes I'm not drawing perfectly straight or whatever. I'm kind of wiggling the pencil a little bit to make this I don't know, it just makes it look less perfect. I mean, it looks more realistic but less perfect. And then I very carefully blend this inwards with a Q-tip because I don't want to blend out the lines completely. I just want them to look a little bit softer. And then I start adding more lines and I bring them a little bit to the center as well. But I'm still making sure that the center part is lighter than the other part and the part that's closest to the pupil. And here you can also see that I am softening it up again. And now I'm taking this darker pencil to increase the contrast and give the eye more dimension. I'm also softening up the edges a little bit around the iris, but I'm doing it very carefully because you don't want to do it way too much. Here I'm using a white gel pen just to increase the whiteness of that rectangle I drew previously. You can also use this if you forgot to draw the rectangle at all. And then I'm drawing some eyelashes within that rectangle because they reflect from the eyelashes, which I haven't actually drawn yet, but you will see later on. Some people forget to shade the eyeball, they just leave it completely white, and again it makes it look flat. So if you want your eye to look more realistic, you want to shade it. And even if in the picture the eyeball looks very white, I'm sure there are some type of shadows in there. You just want to be careful and, you know, shade very carefully because you still want it to be pretty light. Another mistake that I see people do is that they frame the eye and also the tear duct area with a very harsh dark line, and unless the person is wearing very heavy eyeliner, usually people don't have this harsh line around their eye. And also the tear duct area, some people draw very dark just because they think, you know, it's much darker than the eyeball, so I'm gonna draw it darker, but as you can see, it looks a little odd. As with everything else, you want to shade the tear duct area, and depending on what picture you're using as reference, it can look a little different, but since I drew this from my imagination, I just thought that I would make it a little bit darker around the edges, and then towards the middle it would be lighter. And as you can see, the tear duct is also kind of in two compartments because that's what I've seen in most pictures, that it actually looks like that. And then I'm taking a white gel pen in the middle, just making a few dots because it can look a little watery there, and that would also make it look more realistic. And instead of making that harsh line that I did on the left around the eye, I'm just making a line very carefully like this. And when it comes to drawing the skin that's around the eyes, I have noticed that some people start by using a kind of a dark pencil instead of gradually building up the layers with a lighter pencil first and a darker pencil at the end. If you actually know what you're doing, it's nothing wrong starting with a darker pencil, but if you're a beginner, it's much better to go light first and gradually build up the colors because it's easier to correct mistakes and so on. I also made the eyelid crease very dark. In some pictures it is actually dark, but again, I recommend you to go light first and gradually make it darker. I also just quickly want to put a disclaimer here that these are just my tips on how to draw a realistic eye. There are many ways to do it, and I'm not saying that my way is the right way. This is just how I do it, and I'm giving you tips. But if you can do it some other way and still make it look realistic, that's also completely fine, of course. Anyways, back to the video. As you can see, I have started blending it now, and one thing that I notice a lot of beginners do actually is that they blend very harshly. I have used the word harshly a lot in this video, I know, but I often notice that the blending looks kind of patchy sometimes, and when it looks patchy, one reason could also be that you may have been touching the paper a lot, because the natural oils from your fingers will transfer to the paper, and then the pencil will collect into those areas, so that can also make it look patchy. But yeah, my tip is to be gentle when you blend. And on the right side, you can see here that I am using a lighter pencil and drawing very carefully, because I don't want to fill in too much color right away. And when I'm blending, I'm also being very gentle, because I want those soft transitions between light and dark. Sometimes I don't even add more color before I blend. I'm just simply using a tissue or a Q-tip that I have already been using for a previous drawing, so it's a little dirty and I don't need to add more colors. I can just create this very soft blend, which is perfect. And for the eyelid fold, I'm still making it dark, but I'm not drawing it by pressing the pencil very hard into the paper. I'm still being gentle, you know. And close to the eyelid fold, I am adding some more colors, because I want the shadow to be darker right there. And as promised, I would get back to the lower eyelid, so here I have not added any new color. I'm just using the Q-tip that I've already been using and just creating some shadows. And usually there's also a darker shadow right above the inner parts of the eye, below the eyebrow, and where the eye kind of almost meets the nose. It's also usually more dark at the outer parts of the eye, so I'm also creating a shadow right there. Below the eyes, there are usually some creases, so I'm using this very thin pencil again to create some lines to kind of get an idea of those. And then I'm using a tissue paper, blending it very gently, because I don't want to wipe them out. I just want them to look softer. And then I'm using a kneaded eraser just to highlight a little bit, give them some more dimension and stuff like that. And when you're drawing the eyelashes, you don't just want to make some random strokes from the eye and outwards that are slightly curved. And for the lower lashes, you don't want to draw them too dark, and you don't want to draw too many, and you don't want them to be too close together. Instead, you want to draw the eyelashes in a hook shape, for lack of a better word to explain it. But as you can see in the video, I make the eyelashes go like from the edge of the eye and upwards and outwards, as if the eyelashes are actually growing on that upper waterline as they are in real life. And at the end of each stroke, I lift the pencil because I want the eyelashes to be thinner at the outer part, and that you will achieve by lifting the pencil and, you know, lifting the pressure. And just as with everything else, I like to make the eyelashes very light first and then gradually make them darker by adding some more strokes, but I don't add more darkness to every part. I just do it a little bit at random because, I mean, if you look at your own lashes, some of them may be very close together, so they will create a more dark appearance, while some will be further apart and they will look more light, if you know what I mean. And for the bottom lashes, I'm using a thinner pencil. If you don't have one, you can just use a lighter pressure with the pencil that you have. And for the right part, or the outer part, I say the word outer, so weird, it almost sounds like I'm saying other. Yeah, but for that part, I'm making the eyelashes a little longer, just as I did on the upper lash line. And I'm also making them a little closer together, but at the lower lash line, you don't want the lashes to be too close. And I actually clump like 2 to 3 lashes together in some spots, because that's what I've noticed it looks like on me and in pictures of other people. And same thing here, I'm just using this darker pencil to add more contrast at random places on the lash line. On the eye to the left, we don't have a waterline, but on the eye to the right, we do. So in order to shade the waterline, I'm using this Q-tip again without adding any more color. I'm just using whatever is on the Q-tip. Then I'm using this white gel pen and creating a thin line on top of the waterline, because this will create a highlight which will make the waterline look, well, watery. So that will make it look more realistic. And I've also created a few white dots between some lashes on the lower lash line, because that would also help to increase that effect of the eye being a little watery. You can also use a kneaded eraser to create some softer highlights on the rest of the waterline if you want to. I just felt like doing it. May not be super necessary, but yeah. When some people draw the eyebrows, they make this frame for the eyebrows and then they draw again some harsh lines inside. I feel like a common theme with beginners is that they draw stuff too harshly and make everything too dark from the very beginning. Not all beginners, of course, but some of them. And as I have already said as well, is that you want to gradually build up layers. So here I'm still drawing the eye shape, but I'm doing it very carefully. And after I have made the shape, I like to make a thin layer of color just as a base for the eyebrows. And to draw the eyebrow hairs, I'm using this thin pencil that I used for the eyelashes. And the direction you want to draw the eyebrows in is basically, I mean, you can just look at your own eyebrows or pictures of somebody else's eyebrows, because that's what I have done. So I mean, I have kind of learned in what directions eyebrows grow in. So just follow that and you'll be good to go. And again, you want to be very careful in the beginning. Just draw a few strokes here and there, not too much, and then you can continue to increase the contrast with a darker pencil by drawing more strokes where the eyebrow is supposed to be darker. And sometimes eyebrow hairs can grow in different directions in the same place of the eyebrow. So if you look at the middle, some eyebrow hairs I have drawn downwards and some I have drawn upwards. And here I'm just increasing the contrast with a darker pencil. And after I had finished drawing the eyebrow, I felt like I needed to increase the shadow below the eyebrow. And I also touched up a few other places on the eye, you know, increasing the shadows or the highlights. But that's really up to you and what you feel that your drawing needs, because I mean, I can't really instruct you on how to do it. If you feel like you need to increase the shadows anywhere or the highlights, then just do that and you'll be fine. So those were all of the tips I had today. I hope you found this video helpful. I know it's kind of similar to my other eye tutorials, but I still think it's different when you show people how to not do and what to do instead. So I still hope you enjoyed watching it, and I also want to thank you for watching this video, especially if you've made it all to the end. And if you like this video, then please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and also leave a comment if you want to. But yeah, I don't really have anything else to say, so I will see you in my next video.